Back to the book. The Japanese put everyone to digging foxholes. They were not for us, but for the Japanese. Some were at the factory and some on the Japanese side of the camp. None were on our side. When this work started, we knew that the Japanese were now expecting possible air raids, and we were excited because the war was getting closer. It wasn't too much longer after we finished digging all of the foxholes that we were required to cover them over. They were covered with heavy timbers and then further covered with a large amount of dirt. This told us that the Japanese were taking a pounding somewhere, which in our minds was great. At about the same time, the Japanese were becoming rather aggressive, and there was a definite change in their attitude and treatment of us. We now had to really watch what we were doing, and if we did anything illegal, make sure we were not caught. Some of the men were caught, however, and suffered the consequences. So this is great news. They're like, oh, you got to dig in. That means Americans are coming. One morning, shortly after we had gone to work, air raid sirens started going off all over the city, and everyone became very excited, especially the Japanese. We were quickly rounded up and made a double time back to camp. This time we were not searched, but sent immediately to our barracks and told to stay inside. We could still hear sirens going off in all directions. We had not been back to our barracks very long when the Japanese came back and said everyone outside in the yard. Our yard was probably 150 to 200 feet long and perhaps 100 feet wide, more or less. When everyone was out, the Japanese made us lie down and then took off, probably for their foxholes. It wasn't long before we could see a large formation of heavy bombers headed our way. They were up very high, and each left a streak in the sky that extended for many miles behind it. It was a beautiful sight, and we felt proud and excited. It had to be American planes, and the war had reached Manchuria. We watched them slowly come our way, but the Japanese also saw them coming and sent up fighter planes to intercept them, which was a mistake. From the ground, it looked like a swarm of mosquitoes going after a flock of geese, and the comparison is good because that is about how effective the Jap fighters were. From the ground, we could see flashes of fire coming from the bombers and see Japanese planes go plunging down in smoke. Just about then, you could hear the roar of the guns from the bombers as the sound reached the ground. Time after time, the Japs moved in, but the results were the same. Japs going down in flame with no apparent damage to the bombers. What a fight. I would like to interrupt writing about this attack at this point to mention that our prison camp was in the middle of a heavily industrialized area, which was against international rules of war. We should not have been imprisoned where we were. Right next to us was an ammunition factory, and a short distance behind us, a tank factory. We were very close to an airplane factory and a major rail yard. There were numerous military targets for Americans to bomb, and unfortunately, we were right in the middle of them. Still lying on my back, I kept my eyes on the bombers and was impressed by the large number in the formation, about 18 or 20 as I recall. Pretty soon I could see the silver flashes of released bombs, and then in another few seconds saw the sky filled with hundreds of bombs hurtling down on us and making their typical loud swishing sound. I knew they would not miss, and they did not. 3 of the bombs from the plane on the outside of the formation hit our camp, and the destruction was horrible. One of the bombs landed near the high brick wall that surrounded our compound and knocked a big chunk out of its top. The bomb fell right in the yard where we were lying and instantly killed 19 of us and severely wounded many more. The 3rd bomb was an incendiary and fell on our barracks and set it on fire. It was a tragedy. Here we were, after so very long a time, excited beyond belief at watching our side win for a change, and look what happened. We could hardly believe it, but we were now being killed by our own bombs. Even though I was within 20 feet or so of the bomb, I was not hurt. As I looked up, I saw men blackened from the blast try to rise, but fall back terribly wounded or dead. Again, it's the heavies from the other the other side, the other perspective.